Hello Mech Warriors, and welcome back to the Mech Lab, where we try to be a better mech commander every day. In my previous video, I went over some of the worst mechs in every category: Scout, Skirmisher, Cavalry, Heavy Support, but I didn't cover one type of unit, and that's because I think that they are largely useless. And they are the topic of today's video: Ambushers. One of the worst types of units that you can possibly play in Battletech. The idea of these units is that they are lightly armored but carry a lot of gun. So if they can get the drop on you at close range, they open up and just rip you in half. But we'll get into why that doesn't really work in practice, as well as how you can actually make these units work in a couple of edge cases. So the first unit that I want to look at is the Shadowhawk 2D. This is a Shadowhawk that has stripped off most of its armor, leaving it less armored than many light mechs in order for it to pack in more guns, specifically an extra medium laser and SRM2, as well as an extra extraneous ton of SRM2 ammo. I think that this falls into the category of Skirmisher, and it's actually worse than the Dervish, so I apologize to all the Dervish fans out there. There was a lot of them in the comments. This mech is definitely a much worse Skirmisher than the Dervish, mostly due to the fact that it has an AC5 and too many heat sinks. But that's just the case with most Shadowhawks. They're all oversynced. This unit just sacrifices entirely too much armor. Even if you can get up next to something, it doesn't even have the firepower to actually kill any significant unit. You could maybe kill like a light tank or something with this amount of guns, but anything more than that is not dying in one alpha strike from this unit. Its entire purpose is essentially invalidated. This little piece of lore is why it's included in this video though. Despite the fact that I think it falls into the Skirmisher category, apparently the Fed Sons modified a lot of Shadowhawks into the 2D. It says that it proved popular as an ambush mech in Davian space. I don't think that that's the case. Anyone who would have gotten this thing should have immediately just respec'd it to a standard Shadowhawk. This is an even more explosive than normal Shadowhawk, and it's just worse all around. It has very poor battlefield endurance. However, unlike everything else on this list, this unit actually has reasonable mobility. A 583 movement profile allows it to move around in cramped conditions pretty well, and get across an open field into cover where it can wait in ambush for someone. Next up on the list here we have two units, the SRM Carrier and the Light SRM Carrier. I for one actually prefer the Light SRM Carrier to the SRM Carrier for a lot of reasons. It's 4/6, now wheeled movement is an issue because it means that your mobility is going to get knocked out very easily, but this type of unit isn't going to take more than one turn to kill anyways with any kind of firepower. So all it needs to be able to do is get off a big salvo of damage once, and it's pretty much immediately earned its battle value back. The OG SRM Carrier goes really hard into the ambusher role. Everything's front mounted, meaning that it doesn't have the flexibility of a turret, so if something gets to your side or your rear, it just doesn't get shot. It's extremely slow with 3/5 movement, and it has virtually no armor to speak of. It can take like one PPC shot before it starts really getting concerned about its armor, but it does have double the number of SRMs that the Light SRM Carrier has. Now, there's a major problem with the SRM Carrier. It is terrifying. If you get shot with this many SRMs, even just the 5 rack of SRM6s is a terrifying sight to behold. It's going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to be very spread out. These are going to sandpaper something and strip all of the armor off of it. So I think what these units are actually looking for is through armor criticals and head hits in order to get a knockout on a mech. Or they're hoping to lie in wait somewhere, and then once the enemy gets close and is a little bit worn down, you pounce with the SRMs and just crit any open areas. But like I said, I prefer the Light SRM Carrier. You can almost take 2 of these for the cost of 1 standard SRM Carrier. Not quite, but it allows you to put them in 2 different locations, meaning that they can either flank someone, or you can move them in such a way that the enemy can't get away from one of them. Because SRMs are a fairly short-range weapon. If the enemy knows that you have one of these waiting somewhere, they can kind of just avoid it, especially if you're not using double blind. They're gonna know, yeah, you've got that SRM carrier behind a hill waiting for someone to come near it. I'm not going anywhere near that thing. And then as soon as it comes out into the open, it's screwed. There's nothing that you can do about it. It's gonna die. The light SRM carrier is a little more nimble, it can close distance slightly faster, it has the benefit of the turret, which allows it to fire 360, so even if something gets in the side arc of your tank, they still aren't getting away from the fire. And it just overall has a little bit more armor. It can take a medium laser and a PPC on the front or the turret before going internal. That's a big benefit. Now, the final mech that I want to talk about is one that haunts the nightmares of many a mech warrior. It is the AC-20 UrbanMech, the UMR-60L. There are few things more terrifying to encounter in city fight than the AC-20 UrbanMech. It has the ability to hop over a row of buildings that it was hiding behind and get behind you and just blast your back armor open with that AC-20. It's also extremely cheap, even cheaper than the light SRM carrier, meaning that you can take 3 or 4 of these and trade up into bigger units. One Urbi isn't going to kill you, but a whole lance of them probably will, and they are reasonably okay at absorbing some damage. As long as their right arm and right torso remain intact, they are going to just keep coming at you very slowly and firing an AC-20. And when you've got 2 or 3 of these things for every one mech that the enemy has, you can pretty easily surround someone with Urbies and almost guarantee getting a rear shot with that AC-20, which, depending on the mech, could be a knockout if you get that center torso hit. So that essentially brings me to how do you use these things effectively, and it's pretty much what I just went over. You want to take a bunch of them because they're very cheap and very efficient for what they are doing, and you want to bring them in either an urban setting, very tight close quarters, like a match that's just one map sheet, preferably with like a bit of line of sight blocking terrain, like a couple 2 high hills near the center, so that you can close and get those weapons off before the enemy can fire at you. And yeah, just use them to flank, use them to outnumber your enemy completely, and whatever you do, don't let the enemy get line of sight on them before they can get into effective weapons range. If the enemy can see these units before they close to range 6, they're not going to earn their battle value back. But as I've gone over in other videos, if you greatly outnumber your opponent, they can only shoot so many things. Like, they might have an awesome that's capable of killing one of these units per turn, but they can only fire at that one unit. And if the awesome flubs its dice and misses a couple shots, suddenly that unit is still effective, so they have to fire another unit at it to make sure that it's dead. Otherwise, they're going to take another round of SRM shots or AC-20 hits. And when you have twice as many units as your opponent, even with front-loaded initiative, you still have an initiative advantage, and you have too many targets for them to fire at. So they either focus fire and overkill one of these units, or they split fire and maybe don't finish them off and get another turn of getting shot by ambushers. Because that's the thing about these units, if they can get more than one turn of shooting in, it's already a win. So let me know in the comments, have you run ambushers before? Do you really enjoy running ambushers, or are they something that you took out of reluctance or just because it was a very specific urban fighting scenario? Or have you never used them? And if you've never used them, let me know if this has inspired you to try them out. Again, if you're looking at a big open field type of map, these units are not going to be effective. But if it's close quarters, if it's city fight, that's where these units can really shine. If you run like 3 or 4 SRM carriers and turn them around a corner and run into an enemy medium mech, that thing is just going to get ripped apart by SRMs. It's going to get so many head hits. That pilot is going to be knocked out, almost guaranteed. And of course, the AC-20 is always terrifying in close quarters. A Hunchback 4P might be way more efficient than an R60L UrbanMech, and it might be able to take an AC-20 hit without dying. But you can take 2.5 UrbanMechs for the cost of one Hunchback 4P, and that's a lot of firepower even for a Hunchy to take on. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, let me know how well I did or how stupid I am. I always love to hear feedback and constructive criticism. Please like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff to help out the channel. I just really want to thank all of the subscribers. We're at 1.2k subscribers now, which is amazing. And I really want to thank everyone for making last week's video one of the most popular ever. 5,500 views in 1 week is insane. So thank you so much, everyone. Continue to watch the content and share the content with your Mech Warrior pals. That's all I ask of you. And yeah, please continue to just like and share the content with your Mech Warrior pals and keep watching. It's all very helpful for the channel. So thanks so much for watching and have a great day.